Okay, I think we're ready. So we're going to go ahead and get started today. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Kalamazoo Venture Tuesday. Everyone, please do me a favor and mute your microphone when you're not speaking, but do feel free to leave your camera on so we can see smiling faces. For those who have not joined us before, Kalamazoo Venture Tuesday is an opportunity to see inside the minds of investors as they provide feedback to our company presenters. The purpose of KVT is not to secure an immediate investment, but rather is a teaching opportunity for participating companies and members of the audience. Each of our quarterly meetings features a panel of 3 active investors and 3 startup or early stage companies. Each presenter will have 10 minutes to pitch, followed by 10 minutes of feedback from the investor panel. We will not be taking questions from the audience. However, you may ask questions or make comments in the chat, and you'll find that chat feature located in the conversation bubble at the top of your screen. So we're going to get started, first of all, by introducing our panel. We are joined by 3 wonderful volunteers who are active investors who will be sharing their insights with us. So first, I'm going to start with you, Martin. Can you unmute yourself and say hello?
Hi, everyone. I'm Martin Dober. I am a managing director at ID Ventures. We are the venture capital team of Invest Detroit, and we invest statewide in companies at the pre-seed and seed stages. We've invested in over 200 companies in the state of Michigan in the last 12 years or so.
Great, and a great partner for the ecosystem. Thank you. We also have joining us today for the first time, we have VanderWal from Red Cedar Ventures. Calvin, unmute and say hello.
Yeah, hello everyone. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here. Yeah, name is VanderWal. I'm a part of Red Cedar Ventures and Michigan Rise are a couple of pre-seed funds that we invest out of. We also have an opportunity fund. Michigan Rise, our most active fund. We have invested in around 80 companies over the last 4 years at the pre-seed level, really anywhere in the state of Michigan, supporting Michigan-based companies. So yeah, excited to be here.
Great, thank you. Also, one of the great members of our ecosystem. And last but certainly not least, from my hometown, we have Chris Light joining us from the Kalamazoo Angels. So Chris, can you unmute and introduce yourself and say hello?
Hi, I'm Chris Light. I have a fair amount of experience in PE and VC investing and in angel investing. Relatively new to Kazoo Angels, only been with that group about 2 years, but it's been going well. We've seen a lot of great opportunities and looking forward to seeing the pitches here from Kalamazoo Venture and where that is going and offer
Wonderful
feedback as we can.
Great. We're going to appreciate that. Thank you all, panelists. We appreciate you being here. And without further ado, we are going to jump right in. So our first presenter today is going to be Zach Asher from Revision Autonomy. And Zach, we are going to have you share your screen first. Great, I can see it. I'm going to get my little timer going here. And are you ready to go?
Yeah.
All right, whenever you're ready, take it away.
All right, thanks. Hello, everyone. My name is Zach Asher. I'm the CEO of Revision Autonomy, and we provide inclement weather proactive safety products for automotive applications. Right now, people are dying in inclement weather driving scenarios. Specifically, in the US, every year, there are over 5,000 fatalities, nearly 500,000 injuries, and $3 billion lost. So clearly, new proactive safety technologies are needed. And by proactive safety technologies, I'm specifically referring to Advanced Driving Assistance System, or ADAS products. We are working on 2 solutions to this problem right now. The first one that we're working to commercialize is the lane line detection and snow software, which is incorporated on vehicles. The other one is the snow plowable chip-enabled raised pavement markers, which are installed on roadways. So let me talk about these a little bit more in depth. The first one, the lane detection and snow, or LDIS software, is standalone, custom built entirely by us, sold to automotive original equipment manufacturers and eventually tier 1 suppliers. It provides the same output as current clear weather products, meaning that this can be integrated directly into existing ADAS solutions to enable functionality on snow-covered roads for the first time ever. The other product is the chip-enabled raised pavement marker, again, standalone, completely custom-built product sold by us. And this is sold to infrastructure managers because it's installed on roadways. And this is really unique and cool because it basically circumvents the need for a camera entirely. So the lane line information is transmitted directly to the vehicle through snow, and eliminates the need for the camera as well as camera image processing. So these technologies originated at Western Michigan University. But once we understood the commercial viability, we quickly established an LLC and started to work on the business model and marketing analysis. Once we were very confident in the commercial application, we incorporated the company, established a strong management team and a local Kalamazoo Smart Zone office so that we could transition to new customer contacts, begin product scale up, and we've procured a vehicle for demonstration. So we're now at the phase where we need an angel or pre-seed funding to enable marketing and sales and achieve explosive revenue growth towards the tail end of our 5-year financial forecast. So for the rest of the presentation, I'm going to focus on the eldest product, and that product exists in the broader context of the ADAS market, which is currently valued at $40 billion. The lane keeping slice of that market is $8 billion and has nearly a 20% compound annual growth rate. Now for us, we're focusing on what we call software integration managing OEMs or SIM OEMs as our initial early adapter market. These are automotive OEMs that manage their own overall vehicle software architecture, which provides the fewest barriers towards achieving production vehicle sales. So when we look at our strategy or our marketing funnel, we've got all these different phases, but I want to highlight what's required to transition down the funnel. So first, to establish awareness and promote interest of the product, we need technology demos at conferences such as Consumer Electronics Show and the Detroit Auto Show. Once there is customer interest, we need to work hard to quantify what those customer requirements are so that we can understand vehicle quirks, vehicle platform quirks, company quirks, and start preparing for a successful evaluation phase. And the key person that needs to be involved at this point is the ADAS product manager. This is the person that can champion the evaluation of technologies, and it's also the person that ensures that the evaluation is passed. So once the evaluation stage is passed, that customer then funds a transition from a development version of our product to a production vehicle version. So when you compare our product to existing products, the key difference is that existing products work in clear weather only and not in snow, whereas our technology is the opposite. And this is important in the context of increasing regulations and customer demand. So ADAS product managers are willing to work with a startup company like ours and sacrifice time and engineering investment to obtain these new product features. Now, through over 170 customer discovery interviews, we've also worked hard to quantify different aspects of these products that customers find important. And we've tailored our engineering and development process to ensure that we can achieve these product aspects as well. So as I said, I'm the CEO. I'm a tenured professor at Western Michigan University specializing in autonomous vehicles, though I now work full-time at the company. I'm a previous researcher with Toyota, where I helped them develop some proactive technology over 4 years that resulted in 2 patents. And I'm a winter sports enthusiast. Johan, my co-founder, is a previous PhD student of mine. He was the lead researcher for the WMU autonomous shuttle pilot back in October 2019, if anyone saw some of the news stories. And he's also a previous researcher with the Isuzu autonomous vehicles team. My other co-founder, Brian, is a total business rock star, WMU Medallion Scholar of Business, 4.0 GPA, recipient of multiple scholarships, been working with him since 2021. And he has international business expertise from trips to Portugal, Singapore, and Germany upcoming. We also just yesterday hired a full-time software developer, and we work with 2 engineering interns that we're hoping to retain after they graduate. Our advisory board gives us guidance in a variety of aspects, starting with Jeff Rupp. He's got nearly 30 years of automotive industry experience that specifically with ADAS, and so he helps us with the technology and understanding industry. Carrie has over 10 years in successfully scaling startup companies, so she provides us with business strategy guidance. Anthony's worked for various companies in Silicon Valley, so he provides us guidance on the tech industry. And Dr. Goberville was a previous co-founder of the company. He currently works with GM on their EcoCar project and provides us additional automotive industry guidance. Current milestones we're working towards this winter is to conduct a preliminary demo for GM to really understand what their requirements are for this evaluation phase. We want to make sure that we are ready and that we will pass. Once we have established that, next winter, we really want to promote technology demonstration videos and other demos so that we can have some of these sim OEMs in our customer pipeline. Beyond that, it's just obtaining development contracts and production vehicle sales. So what do production vehicle sales look like? Well, again, this is just that small slice of our early adopter market, the software integration managing OEMs. We've just done a linear data fit of historical sales data for 3 of the sim OEMs we've identified so far. Typically, these companies spend about $1,000 per vehicle on their ADAS solution, and there is precedent of paying $100 per vehicle for new enabling technologies such as our ELDIS software. And so you just look at the number of vehicles sold and multiply that by $100 to understand the early adopter market here. So when we do a financial projection, the key assumption here is completion of our winter 2026 milestone, and that is obtaining the development contract. So you see that $700K in 2026 there. Once we have a development contract, we successfully execute on that contract to transition our technology into production vehicles. And that's really where the real revenue starts, is from production vehicle sales. So in 2027, we assume a 15% incorporation on just one sim OEM vehicle sales, and then it progresses from there. The cost of goods sold has to do with things like data collection, curation, and processing. The gross margins are in line with a typical software company. And our operational expenses assume spending on sales and marketing now, which drives our net income negative for the first 3 years, but then unlocks this significant revenue in 2028 and a net income of approaching $2 million in 2028. So our fundraising plan right now, we're operating on $300,000 from national and state grants. We're seeking $500,000 from external investors to focus on marketing and sales and unlock that significant revenue in 2028. And this enables an additional $125,000 in state matching funds. So our future funding right now, we're working on 2 grants that are due in March. We have a significant track record over many years of getting these grants funded, so we're very confident in that. But it's all leading towards a $15 million Series A in 2027 for rapid scale up, and our exit strategy is acquisition. So I hope I've convinced you that safe winter transportation is essential and that we have the business model and technology to enable it. Happy to take any questions and feedback.
Thank you, Zach. That was terrific. Appreciate that. We are going to kick off the feedback section with Martin. Would you like to unmute and share your thoughts with Zach?
Sure. Zach, good to see you again, and really enjoyed your presentation. Nice job. I guess I would like to hear a little bit more about the relationship you currently have with GM. Kind of how did that come about? How did you what is that engagement like with them now? Are they a paying customer? Are you doing some initial work and hoping that would then develop into a paying contract? Kind of, can you explain where that's at?
Yeah, so we are trying to be very careful in our approach with GM, because if we were to say, hey, do a full evaluation of our technology and it's not quite at their expectations, then that's a no from them and we have to move on to another customer. So we are not trying to push a full evaluation with them right away. And so right now we send them a new demo every month. We just sent them a demo last night to just kind of showcase the the expansion of the technology and how that's working. And then they're going to come to Kalamazoo in March to kind of do a preliminary demonstration and provide us some information. So we've been working with the manager on the R&D side as well as the production side and their venture arm. And so the manager on the production side is really our key contact, and he is very excited about the technology. But like I said, we're trying to sort of back off a little bit on the formal evaluation just until we understand that process a little bit better. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. And then I just have one other question. This is a software-only solution, right? So it's plugging into the existing hardware that's already on the vehicle. I assume that there is no hardware involved. I think you've told me that before.
Yes.
But like from an OEM's perspective, how would this work in climates that don't have snow? Is it something that would automatically be turned on just for vehicles in colder climates, or would it just work in the background and not really have any issues with warmer climate areas?
So it's designed to only kick in when it recognizes snow. And in fact, the current products are designed to turn off when they recognize snow. So it's sort of this additive feature that if the vehicle has our product, it now unlocks this proactive safety for driving in snow, which many people have anxiety about driving in snow. And so, I think what you were also kind of leading towards with the software only solution is sort of, how do we account for different vehicle computers and cameras and things like that? And that's all sort of handled in the production version contract. So we have a development version that shows how the technology works. And if an OEM likes it, then we would start working with their specific hardware and transitioning to their hardware. And that's basically what happens over that contract with them. Did that kind of
Yeah,
hit on all of your points? Okay.
it did. Thank you very much, Zach.
Okay, thank you. Calvin, we're going to go to you next. What feedback would you like to provide?
Yeah, I guess first off, great job, Zach. Before I have any questions, I think my favorite slide was the steps to obtain a production vehicle contract. I think that was a great slide in laying out how that works. I think that was really helpful to kind of understand the steps here and really understand the timing of this, right? And so that's kind of where my head goes in terms of, this isn't something where you'll go from 0 to 15 million in sales in 1 year, right? You got to go through these evaluation steps. So I guess my question would be around that in two stages. One would be, have you gone through this evaluation stage with certain companies? I mean, how confident are you guys in that evaluation stage? You mentioned you don't want to go to GM until you've maybe gone through this with other companies. Have you gone through it with any companies up to date, or is that kind of the stage you're at? Yeah, maybe I'll start there.
Yeah, great question. As I mentioned, we've spent a lot of time talking with, startup and mid-sized companies and OEMs and tier ones to understand this process. And the feedback we've gotten from everyone is that the evaluation stage is super critical. It's either a yes or no. And if it's a yes, then everyone celebrates and it's big money or whatever, and you're viable. We've talked to many startups that are just, right on the cusp, and they're like, we have to get there, or else we're not going to make it, kind of a thing. And so we want to be very careful. Through good fortune or maybe not, I suppose, sort of the customer that seems to be the most interested is sort of a huge customer, right? So we want to be very careful. If it was sort of a smaller customer, we might rush towards an evaluation and just kind of learn everything we can from conducting a full evaluation. But because it's GM, we want to try to be very careful. And although we would still learn a lot from doing an evaluation and still potentially not being successful, we don't want to rush that. So to directly answer your question, we have not done an evaluation with anybody yet. But because we're working with GM, we just want to be very careful in doing that. And sort of right now with the funding raise is, we want to conduct marketing and sales so that we have additional potential customers lined up, such that we're not make do or die based on one evaluation or something like that. Does that answer your question?
It does. Yep. That's helpful. And that kind of leads into a second question that I had regarding the timeline. I mean, it's going to take, a few years to get to that stage of evaluation and actually going through that evaluation. Like you said, if it's a yes, everyone celebrates, big money there. I guess a question or maybe something you can double click on from a competitive standpoint, maybe there's no one today that does, this in terms of snow. By the time you get to that stage 3 years from now, are there concerns of someone else trying to replicate it? Is anyone else trying to replicate it today? What does the competitive landscape look like, kind of today and, 2 or 3 years from now?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And probably the most concise way to answer that is that clear weather products have a bigger market and they still don't work very reliably. And so all of the established competitors are 100% focused on their clear weather products because they want to improve them. The OEMs and tier ones are not happy with the current market leader. And so these other companies are sort of clawing for market share in the clear weather space. And so they're all sort of focused on that. And as someone who is a winter sports enthusiast, it sort of angers me that there's nothing being done for the winter driving, right? So that's kind of, we're operating by ourselves. I mean, we have tons of evidence for this. We talked to, Virginia Tech Transportation Institute manages huge data sets, and they've told us that absolutely no one has asked for any of their snow data. In terms of, could that change? Potentially, but we have a huge head start, right? So if no one's doing this now and we are successful over the next 2 or 3 years, we have a huge head start. And the business literature suggests that having that initial market share is a huge competitive advantage moving forward. Does that?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And I would maybe even mention that in your competitive landscape slide. You mentioned how these project managers aren't doing it themselves because they'd rather buy it from someone else instead of investing in the R&D themselves. I would mention the clear weather, that aspect. Everyone's focused on clear weather. That's really not lined up right now. So everyone needs to focus on that because that's a bigger market. So you guys can kind of come in on the back end on some of this stuff. So I think that's helpful.
Yeah, no, that's great feedback. Really appreciate that.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
think that's all I got.
Cool. Thank you, Calvin. Chris, what kind of feedback would you like to provide to Zach?
Well, excellent presentation, neat product. I think there's a lot of wins here. One just kind of minor, I guess, production or question is, does fog, do the current products in the marketplace work in fog? Does this help in fog? Because obviously a winter situation tends to be northern states for North America, limited, it's a real issue. I get that, but I can also see why it's a smaller market. Is there any other widening in the application to something like fog?
Yeah, great question. I think one of the other panelists hit on this. I knew there was something that I didn't respond to. So let me talk about some of the different aspects of inclement weather. So first of all, 70% of the US experiences snow every year. So it's a significant chunk of the US, let alone other countries in the world. In terms of fog and rain, those are the other sort of big inclement weather approaches. Northwest United States has a lot of fog concerns, and South United States has a lot of heavy rain. The same technology that allows this to work in snow can be applied to rain and fog, but we are not focused on that right now. We do think that we can transition to that in the future once we have some initial traction with the snow application. Current products, we've done some initial testing in fog and rain. It of course depends on how dense the fog is and things like that. They tend to do a little bit better with fog and rain than they do with snow, just because you can still see lane lines a little bit through fog. But the bottom line is that all of the products are designed to work in clear weather. We've actually seen it written into the engineering requirement that this functions in clear weather, and when there is not clear weather, it must turn off. So we still think that there is a significant opportunity, a business opportunity for fog and rain, as well as direct technology translation into those applications. Does that?
Okay. Well, that is very helpful, and I appreciate it. I just was curious about that. And if we can go to your financials real quickly.
Sure.
I was curious about the presumptions in there, and it is looking like the operating expenses, it was looking to be somewhat linear, and I would presume that they would probably actually go up exponentially, and also in the early years, I you have 4 employees now. It looks like you're looking to add 4 pretty soon in the marketing space. I mean, what's your current cash burn rate, and do you have a cash model designed beyond the basic financials?
Yeah, so right now it's the 3 co-founders, full-time software developer, and 2 interns. And so the $300,000 that we have lasts about a year, and the the operational expenses are relatively linear, just because it's really focused on going customer by customer. And so once we have one customer and transition to production vehicle sales, it creates this exponential revenue growth with sort of the same investment on the company side. At least that's our understanding right now. And then the grant is sort of baked into the operational expenses, which is why it seems a little bit high and strange in 2024 and 25. If we sort of remove some of the sales and marketing from operational expenses now, the net income is sort of nearly zero for 24 and 25. But again, sort of the goal is to spend on that now to then have those higher numbers in 2028. Did that address all of your questions?
Well, I think so. And again, obviously, you need to get to revenue with actual paying customers beyond the grants, of course, and you're going to need the marketing and sales money to do that. It just seemed a little bit surprising that it would be linear, but if you're going on a customer basis, that could very well make sense. Cash is always king, of course.
All right, thank you. Zach, did you have any specific questions for the panel? Anything you'd like them to look at or weigh in on?
Yeah, I mean, 2 really quick things. One thing that we've kind of gone back and forth on internally is we have all of this historical university development for these products, right? When it comes to, technology products, I have a million ideas, but only a few of them have received, significant university funding. I don't even talk about that at all. For example, the chip-enabled raised pavement markers are part of a $2.5 million Department of Energy grant through the university. But I don't know that really affects commercialization. I mean, what do you all think about showing, some of the university backbone of some of these technologies? Is that valuable for the business sense? I mean, obviously, we kind of decided that it's not, but I'd love to hear your feedback.
I'd just like to jump in on that. I mean, obviously, that would be fastest to profit, would be a licensing model, right?
Yes. We have licensing models in the Eldis product specifically. We've changed it enough actually so that the technology is completely owned by the company at this point. But more, I just mean, in terms of the technology development itself. Is there any value in showing how much university effort really went into these technologies before they moved out of the university, or not really?
I mean, I think it is. I think it's absolutely something. Obviously, the technology changes, and not all the dollars that a university puts into a technology like that is directly applicable to the end product. But it shows that, there's a lot of time and resources and outside of, the company just developing this on their own. So I think I would encourage you to have a slide that shows kind of, how this came out of the university and the amount of, in terms of dollars and time that was used to develop these products. I think that would be really helpful to see.
Yeah, I totally agree with Martin, and maybe one other point, I don't want to oversimplify this either, right? Kind of talking about the competitive side of things. I think a part of it is that this isn't easy to build, right? And so leaning into this is the amount of time and effort and money and energy that's gone into building this, I think can just, further prove that, this isn't something that someone can just come along and build in 6 months, right? This is something that is difficult to develop over time. So agreed on that front. Diving into that would be helpful.
Okay. The only other thing we were wondering about is, we've sort of gotten a lot of advice to focus on one product, right? We showed two products here, but we're at least saying, we're focused on this one first, and then this one is sort of complementary and sort of a different market, and so we're addressing that later. But what was your impression of having those two products? Did it seem like, you really wish that we were doing just one? Did it seem like they conflicted? I mean, I was hoping to kind of present it as, some of the ideas are almost, pivotable or something if needed. I mean, what are your thoughts on all of that?
Yeah, I'd be curious to get the other panelists' thoughts. I think my suggestion would be, I don't mind you mentioning that. I would almost move that towards the end of the presentation and say, hey, here's our core product, here's where we're focusing, and then here are future product iterations. Because that was a question of mine is, okay, is this kind of a one-trick pony where you have one product, and if that fails, it's kind of done? Well, no, if you go through that and say, here's our core product, and then here are future iterations that can expand our market even more. That would be my only suggestion is moving that towards the end. I'd be curious if others agree with that.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
agree with that too. I would, and I'd almost rather hear about the, rain and fog products because they're more directly related to what you're doing. Bringing up another product that seems very different, hardware focused. Sure, I mean, I think it's good to have it on the horizon, but it did start me thinking of a lot of questions about that early on in the presentation. And then when you kind of completely focused on the other one, I just decided to skip those questions. But I think it's good to show the technology breadth of the company and how you can expand and being, beyond just a one product company. But I might focus a little bit more on those fog and rains that capabilities that tie in more directly with the first product.
Yeah, I agree. That road enabled looked really fascinating, but at the end of the day, that would have to be ultimately taxpayer enabled to get in all the roads, right?
Yes.
Nothing wrong with it. It's a completely different business model than one at the automobile and the consumer level. True?
True. Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, awesome. That was a great session. Enjoyed that very much. Terrific presentation, Zach. Thank you, panelists, for incredible insights. Really enjoyed that. And we're not done. Next up, we have Scott, right? Scott Damon is going to join us. Scott, can you put your slides up? Let's make sure we see them first.
Just a moment.
Okay. There we go. All righty, so we can see your slides. And are you ready?
Sure am.
Okay, whenever you're ready, go ahead and take it away.
Well, thank you very much for today's opportunity. The goal here is I kind of want to show you a macro perspective of what we're trying to do as a company and kind of the overall landscape, and then narrow into that business model and that return for any investment opportunity. So really the key here, this photograph here of the grandfather and the grandchild personifies the vision of this business, and it's getting people moving better so they can reach their movement performance goals to maintain an active and independent lifestyle. When we look at the opportunity today, we're blazing a new path in this movement performance. So really it's the next frontier of movement performance. We're taking a data-driven feedback loop, instant objective feedback, and we are going to fuse that with AI-backed insights with some augmented reality application in the pipe to impact this movement performance paradigm. The company today, we're still very early stage, very modest revenue, but we are a post-revenue company. We sell primarily in the high performance space. And that's really, you don't even need a problem in that space. That's the competitor that just wants to win. So they're just absorbing the feedback to baseline, track, optimize. This other area that really is our human impact story is this health span longevity space. Getting people thinking more on that holistic prevention side to live an active lifestyle, maintain independence, and basically freedom. And we really look at that opportunity as the high growth and the exit plan for the business. Today's problem around movement, I love this visual. I've had this visual for a number of years. It shows all of these medical conditions that we address individually, but they tie back in to movement health and a lack of movement health. And of course, current treatments for a lot of these conditions is more pharma that creates new problems that can often be bigger. So now, needless to say, there are, what I'm going to present to you, what our solution is today, your movement health professional, whether it's like your physical therapist type, anything in PM&R, they have tools available today. But the problem is these chew up a lot of real estate. They're very expensive. They work very siloed. And no company has really kind of combined different aspects of movement health in a, I'd say, more comprehensive platform package that can be scaled. So that brings us to our solution. What Fitbit is to steps, we are to movement. And so we're really trying to focus on the core pillars of movement performance, which is balance, reaction, mobility, and functional power. And this has been kind of an overview, a little bit abstract. So really I wanted you to see, how do our products work in today's environment? On that picture on the far left, that's us working in the high performance space. That's actually an Olympic weightlifter. She's in a very low kilo weight class. She has our sensor, which is this little thing right here, 26 grams of movement sensor technology. That's attached to the barbell. So she's working with her coach. So after every repetition of a squat jump, she's getting velocity, explosive type feedback. The picture to the next there is us working in the clinical setting. This is actually out of the Mayo Clinic in Arizona, where we're part of their performance evaluation process. And you have a gentleman who's doing a seated med ball throw. That's our ballistic ball product. It's the early iteration. There's a sensor inside of that. So every time this gentleman makes the throw, it's reporting his power and his velocity. The other key thing that we really always keep in mind with our solution is there's a lot of complexity dialed into this. There's movement algorithms, quaternion methodology. There's a lot going on. We know that when we provide this practical solution, it has to be a simple presentation of forward-thinking concepts. So for us as a company, we're always thinking that way. Regardless of what your solution is to impact any area in movement performance, you got to create an engaging experience. And when we look at like the vision of our overall movement performance platform, we think about setting up a platform that creates that motivational interviewing to create the intrinsic motivation so we can really improve this feedback loop and get people improving. And how we attack that is, number one is it's the motivational interviewing step. What are your movement goals? What is important to you with either your sporting activity or your lifestyle? Then we have a set of standardized protocols to get those objective measures. There's no fluff with this. These are hard numbers. People appreciate the hard numbers. The individual is used to Excel spreadsheets and et cetera, so they actually want that. Then we get into that area where, what is your needs analysis? So you could be, for example, if we're looking at somebody active aging, maybe more into senior, and they're coming up and down out of a chair, and we're working on that. We want to know, hey, you still have strength, but you need to work on that velocity component, or you move pretty fast, but maybe we need to work a little bit more on strength. And so from that, then you get your personalized prescriptive program, and then it's just that feedback loop of monitor and make adjustments so we can optimize. And the point I want to make here is, as a company, you probably are seeing here, we are part hardware. We sell smart hardware, but it's going to be the mobile application, the analytics that drive the product. So it's a unique situation where we control the input, the instant feedback, and the output. And we're pretty steadfast on, we don't believe in software only solutions. We really believe in you have to control that entire ecosystem if you really want to make an impact. So I have just one short video so you can kind of see how our product works in the real world. This is in the clinical situation, and there is our module is on the back. There's a belt attached around this gentleman. And so I'll just kind of show you how the product works. So he's coming up, would be what's called the functional chair stand test. And then his associate there is holding the iPad, so it's reporting the information. A little bit into the business case. So this addressable market, we're kind of hanging this new banner called Movement Performance. And we're looking for the reach growth into this high performance vertical and then health span / longevity. We see piles of opportunity, but we recognize that we've got to narrow and be a little bit more specific to where we want to target. You can see there circled around Q1 is athletics. That's where we sell today. And so we are actually in the middle of a very intense go-to-market strategic plan with the local agency. It's going to be ready in mid-February. It's going to really identify the granular aspects of how we're going to grow that athletics area. We're going to be focusing on a handful of segments. And then as we grow the business into this active lifestyle space, we're going to have a new product ready, launch ready for Q3. But really the thing that's been missing with our company and what we really need to focus on is that go-to-market strategic plan done really well and very granular. So a little bit about traction. And I've got this slide broken out a little bit because there is a lot of information on here. Really want to point out that, you know, we are still very new as a company, but we've established a global customer base, and it's been at various levels of sport, from collegiate into professional athletics, into some pioneering medical institutions, and then I have the Olympic rings up there. It just represents, we have customers, Olympic athletes from around the world. They could be in Japan, China, Taiwan, Germany. It's very all over the place. This Spartan logo, Spartan Innovations, this is our newest partner, and it's been a very pivotal partner. It's where we're located. We're part of Spartan Innovations, Michigan State University Research Foundation, under the Bridge program here in Grand Rapids. We relocated the company here late summer, and it's been a game changer for us, and that's why we're here today. So a few milestones of the company. We launched our MoveFactorX wearable in October 21, so we're about 2 years and a quarter into that product. Our smart medicine ball, the ballistic ball, was trailed about a year later. And effectively, I will tell you, we've been a bootstrapping, self-funded company. And so during this time and previous to those launches, we've established our portfolio of trade secrets. We've grown the international customer base with actual customers plus some sales channels. We have a very interesting medical clinical multi-site research study that is underway that's going to be really fascinating. Specific to one of our segments, Golf Digest just announced a new certification for performance, which they're going to be training like the golf professional at the clubs on this whole performance aspect, and we are the featured technology of that. We're really excited about that opportunity. And really where the rubber meets the road, we closed 23 with 78% revenue growth, and our user engagement was up 91%. We were happy about that because we grew as a company with unit sales and revenue, but also we were really pleased to see the overall engagement improve. That's important to us for like the stickiness of the product. This is a slide on our team, and I will tell you that our advisors will grow. We have some really exciting advisor partnerships coming up this year once we get some backing. And why we're here today, our investment ask. I know just rallied through a lot of stuff. We're ready to scale up. We have some significant milestones to hit early this year to really set the company up for that higher scaling event. And so we're seeking a $500,000 seed round. This is a 14-month plan. You can see from the revenue projections, we feel confident that we can scale this company up significantly. You know, this is a hardware sale, SaaS, DaaS, and effectively the basis of an information company. So we feel really bullish about that opportunity. And even as a hardware company, it's a very high margin sale. So that shouldn't be anything that anybody should be concerned about at all. And quite frankly, the hardware is vital to make the whole ecosystem run. How we're going to deploy that capital, this is just a quick overview. 60% is going to some continued R&D, ops, and commercialization, especially for that Q3 launch in the health side. And then a significant amount, 40%, is directly to revenue operations to support the go-to-market campaign. We do have a term sheet in place. We have $75,000 committed of that $500,000. So today we're seeking to fill out the remainder of that seed round. This is the closing slide here, just to share a little bit about our belief system and our impact. Let's go back to that original photograph of the grandfather holding the grandchild up. That is the inspiration of the company. It's getting people moving better so they can reach or maintain their movement performance goals. We want quality of life. And as a company, we will always lead with innovative products. We've always been disruptive to existing products. We'll continue to do that, but we're also learning how to match that innovation in with emerging trends. And we really see a lot of excitement within that health span longevity space, along with enterprise that's seeking the information. With all this happening, and I'm going back to those 4 pillars of movement performance.
Okay, do wrap up soon. You're over 12 minutes.
Sure. Okay. This will be the first platform that ties all of those components together. And lastly, our Made in Michigan impact is important. We already have brought all of our PCB manufacturing into the state of Michigan, our plastics, everything. So we're really on board with that. Definitely made in USA, but also more so made in Michigan. And that's a wrap.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so we need some participant feedback. We are going to start with Calvin this time. Calvin, can you unmute and share some thoughts with Scott?
I can. I like that Spartan Innovation logo on that slide. I got it right behind me too. So yeah, Scott, like you mentioned, is a tenant of our bridge space in Grand Rapids, and has been great, immersing himself in the Grand Rapids ecosystem. But no, great presentation, Scott. I think the go-to-market strategy plan that you mentioned you're going through is going to be helpful in some of where my head goes in terms of questions, because really understanding in that active lifestyle space, who the customer is, what is their real motivation for using your product, and how that looks like in terms of how you sell into those customers. I think double clicking on that would be helpful. So maybe if you want to, I guess, provide some context around, who are those customers in that spaces, and maybe even beyond that, have you had customer conversations with them that, kind of show, yes, this is something we need. We're looking to implement this movement health into our existing, solutions, but there's nothing out there really that we can use. How have those customer conversations gone?
Sure. Yeah, it's a great question to address. So when we look at kind of longevity, or a lot of people refer to as like health tech, we understand that clinical side is the monster, but it's going to take a while to get there. When we look at that active lifestyle, that's where we're going quicker, because that works in that private pay environment. And so we'll be providing a turnkey solution to the chiropractor, the physical therapist that has their own facility, wellness, spa, that type of environment, where we really feel the consumer is hungry for this type of information, yet that movement health professional that owns those businesses is waiting on some tools. So our tool will serve a need with their customer who's demanding higher quality, and it'll be turnkey integrated, and it'll improve that ROI for the business as well. So it fits into all those stories. So we're excited about that. We just need that go-to-market strategy and structure around it to make sure that we're precise with that plan in that space.
Yeah, that is helpful. And then kind of going off of that, one of the slides had early stage milestones, and it listed out a few of them. One of them talked about a medical clinic study that you launched in, I think, Q3 of 2023. I think, kind of going off of, it would just be another point of validation showing, yes, our customers are looking for this, to maybe double click on that medical clinical study and understand what exactly that looks like, what it's doing, and how that came about. I think understanding that would be helpful too.
Yeah, and I would love to share more of it, but it's an offline conversation, not in this format.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think that's all I got.
Okay, thank you. Chris, we're going to go to you now. Go ahead and unmute and share with Scott.
Great product, great presentation. It's fascinating. Kind of going along the lines where Calvin was, I would really be curious when you're meeting with your future customers, what the growth on that really is. I mean, is this really more for elite coaching groups and the top chiropractors, top PT firms, or where is their opportunity to profit from this? Because from a business standpoint, obviously in the value chain, there needs to be profit up and down, top to bottom. There's margin in your product, but they need to get the margin on their end as well. True?
True. Yeah. And there's no doubt that whatever we develop has to fit their business case.
And I think that's probably an area that is still being researched and learned. True?
That's correct. Yeah. For that longevity space, we know it's there, but we have to form that business case out. Correct.
And then there is obviously inventory and capital cost throughout this, because you do have a physical product in that. And I imagine along those lines, that needs to be part of the development process. How much do you keep in inventory? How much you expect your customers, the servicing model, because I imagine this eventually parts break and so forth, right?
Yeah, it's actually the product itself is rather low maintenance. And so we, over that last 2 years and a quarter, by cash flowing the business, have taken that treacherous step of like selling, replenishing, right? It's been a high cash flow management thing, but we've done it with no outside money. And so this has really been kind of these kind of internal milestones that we have to run as lean as possible to de-risk for you as the investor, to where we feel we've crossed off a lot of those boxes and have good processes in place because we had no choice but to operate like that.
Well, and the fact you have 2 products in market now with real revenues, that's a big deal. That's fantastic. I guess the only thing I might add on that is if you have something in the pipeline, other products you think would be add-ons or future sales, that you would want to put that into a pitch that helps to salivate investors, as it were.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. We have some very exciting stuff in the pipe, but we're in a competitive area and people are keeping an eye on us. So we just have to be really careful what we share in this environment.
Excellent. Well, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And last but certainly not least, Martin, unmute and weigh in, please.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Great presentation. I echo a lot of the comments from the other panelists here. I think one before I get into those, one question I had is just in terms of, and maybe something I'd like to learn more about, maybe in the presentation as some feedback, is like what exactly are you measuring with your intellectual property? Is it just velocity and kind of a velocity curve of the items where you have these sensors, or are there other measurements that are you like path of the barbell, or any other types of measurements included? Is it an accelerometer? Is it like what is it that you're actually measuring with this system?
Yeah, that's a great granular question. So we use the IMU, inertial measurement unit technology, which is part gyroscope, part accelerometer. We run that through the quaternions methodology, so it allows our product to work in 3D space, not just linear movements, which is giving us a pile of opportunity to expand utility and actually get at the meaningful metrics. We're not liked a lot with some of the high performance companies because we disrupt the old school metrics of just this average velocity kind of boring stuff. We offer that, but we are all about blazing the trail to get at the information that matters, the more meaningful stuff. And that's a more of a detailed conversation, but it's what we're all about. And why we're disruptive is we're coming in with a $395 product where the other companies are selling for $2,500. They have their version of a SaaS, which is kind of like a BS SaaS platform. We're anti that. And so we're all over being more granular and getting at the stuff as we talk about the transfers to the task, whether it's a sporting task or the movement task.
Great. Yeah, I think, just in your presentation, that is something that I, just would love to learn more about. So maybe including a slide on the actual tech and some more detail would be useful. The other comment, it's kind of been said by the other panelists, just kind of the go-to-market. This is really a B2B product. There's a lot of focus on the end customer, that's using it, but you really need to talk about what are the benefits to the business, whether it's on the high performance side or whether it's more on the clinical or physical therapy side. Like, what are they getting? What are the benefits that are being derived to them? Is this a time savings? Is it a profitability, extends their profitability? Like, what does it allow them to do less with more people or more with less people? Like, what is it that they're getting from this? And I would, just love to hear more of kind of how you've talked with, lots of different businesses and what they're looking for, and get that customer feedback from them, not just the end customer. So that'll be more that I would suggest putting some of that into the slides a little bit more. And then I know we're probably running short on time, but the only one other thing that I wanted to mention is that there was the one slide on revenue that had all the numbers redacted. And so I would like just not include that in the slide. I would love to see what those numbers were.
Offline. And your first comment, well taken. We're working on that.
Great.
Okay, awesome. Scott, were there any particular questions you had of the panel? Anything you were looking specifically for feedback?
No, I think within their questions, they addressed some of the things that I was wondering as well. I would say for us guys that are maybe a little bit hyper vision driven, it's challenging for us to work in this environment. We're definitely more face-to-face and demonstration oriented. So I appreciate going through this exercise.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Go ahead and unshare your screen. Stop sharing so we can get everybody back and see all the smiling faces. And hang on. There we go. Now I have everybody back and I can see everyone. Terrific. Well, we are, as I said, we're going to end a little early today because we had one less presenter, but that gave us actually a little bit more time with each of our presenters today, which I really enjoyed. We had a little bit more in-depth conversation. I would, of course, like to thank all of our presenters today for sharing their innovative companies with us. Fascinating technology, really great startups. Wish everybody the best. And I'd also like to give a big thank you to our investor panel for joining us today and providing such insightful feedback. I really appreciate your time and your expertise. Lastly, thank you to all of you who joined us today to watch. I hope you'll join us again. Our next session is on April 23rd. It's a little bit of a change. It's not the last Tuesday of April. It's backed up 1 week. So it will be on April 23rd. As always, that meeting will feature 3 brand new companies to present and 3 brand new investors who are going to provide some feedback. So you can register for that and any other upcoming events on our website. I did drop that link in the chat, so do feel free to join us for a variety of online virtual events, as well as events that are happening here in Kalamazoo, which are open to the public. And thank you all again for your participation today and your attendance. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you next time. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
There, and we are